Hi guys. Okay, so this is me leaving. Smoke. You'll get used to that. This is me leaving Guatemala and entering El Salvador. I stayed at this resort type place. It was frustrating as all hell. It was a beautiful place, but really dated rooms. Even though they were really sort of like spiffy type looking, a lot of things didn't work in the rooms, and the internet was deplorable, and it didn't work, and you get with hotels is they just think you just got to worry about cars overtaking in front of you. They just think that the internet being down is not their fault, and in a lot of cases it isn't. But having a proper infrastructure is, these hotels that talk about having high-speed internet, all this sort of stuff. It's just so frustrating. The way they handle it, and as a person who comes from a technology background like myself, don't pull that crap over. I mean, I know what's going on, and I know, in my place here, I have Google Home with Google Wi-Fi. So even in a small place like mine, I've got 3 little nodes around my place, so I get good internet everywhere. And they could do that easily. For $1,000, you could have like a whole campground wireless, Anyway, it was frustrating, especially when you're spending money and they go, oh, well, it's not our fault, it's something to do with we're waiting to hear, a day without internet. Just crap. Luckily I have T-Mobile, which allows me to get in certain countries up to 4G LTE, but in all countries I get data, so at least I can do real basic stuff, answering my emails and blah blah blah. So this was supposed to be a nice ride and a nice day, and I chose a border I first chose a southern border on the border of Guatemala and El Salvador, and as you'll see, when I arrived, the border was closed. So it took me about another hour and a half to ride back around to go to the other border, which was super frustrating. As you can see, it's a tight squeeze everywhere in cities. Which, started off my day, was going to be about a 6 to 7 hour lazy day of riding, and it didn't turn out that way. The thing about border crossings is, like, the reason I chose the southern border too was because it wasn't as big a border, and so it was a smaller border crossing, which normally means not that many people, and you get there reasonably early, like 9-10 a.m. you're fine. However, it didn't turn out that way, and there was a lot of traffic on the roads as well. The roads were pretty similar to this most of the way. There was some more open roads outside of the towns, but it was, this sort of road doesn't bother me. As you can see, unless I'm overtaking, most people just broke in front of me. Unless I'm going to overtake, I always leave a pretty good gap between myself and the car in front of me. Unless it's a bit really going really slow. And then I can just basically blast past them. Having plenty of room, I can pick up speed and go past them. You always got to be wary of somebody overtaking somebody else in front of you. Through towns, the best way to overtake is to sit close and overtake them when they come to the topes, because most cars and trucks really slow down around the topes and that. Always got to be, no matter where you're riding in Central and South America, you've got to have your wits about you, because people will try things that you just won't believe. So yeah, so basically my first crossing was supposed to be at I think it's San Cristobal, was the border name, and yeah, things just didn't turn out for me, and it was blisteringly hot as well, which with me I sweat like a, well, we call it in Australia, we say sweat like a pig, but I don't know if pigs sweat. But yeah, it was a really hot day, and I booked a hotel in San Salvador, in El Salvador. Quite a nice hotel, I think it was the Sheraton Hotel there, just for one night, because I wanted to get to the coast of El Salvador. Didn't really want to spend much time in the cities. Cats doing their own shit. Yeah, so I planned to have about a 6 to 7 hour ride day, and it didn't really turn out that way. It didn't turn out well for me the whole day. So my first point, I ended up getting to the border, and I had a heap of guys come up to me, and they were trying to. No one told me that the border was closed at first, because people were trying to sell me stuff, you know, like the money changers were there, and you know, so they were all trying to sell me stuff, and then when I told them I was fine and I didn't need any help, you know, even one guy came up and offered me $5 to help me get across the border. I don't know what he was going to say once I found out that the border was closed, but he scooted off once I said no anyway. But the guys that were there, the money changers were there, were nice guys, and they sort of helped me out a little bit. McDonald's. Anyway, yeah, so I basically had to turn back around and reroute my maps and stuff like that, and head north to a different border, and you know, that's life in this business. You know, you've just got to go with the flow. So the first border crossing was called Las Chinamas, and the border I ended up going across was the San Cristobal border, but I started off on heading towards the La Chinamas border, and the link will be on my website for both the borders. I didn't know that I should have checked beforehand. It was just one of those things. So again, with my border crossing, I make sure I had plenty of copies. I mean, I always had a minimum of 5 copies of my passport, my title, my registration, and my driver's license. I just always made sure. Black and white's fine for all of them. The only thing I would probably get is the title. I had that in colour, and I had it printed double side, just in case, because the title is one of the important things. Proof of ownership. If you don't own your motorbike, it's good to get a letter from the loan company or whoever you've got the loan with, to say that that they're fine with you crossing the border. I mean, I didn't, because I own my motorbike outright. I didn't have to do that, but I imagine that you might get asked. I spoke to nearly everyone that I rode with or met along the way owned their motorbikes. So from the cheap KLRs, you know, good motorbikes though, but cheaper KLRs, most people bought their bike. You might only get asked in some of the more advanced countries, but you better have it, because it could be the end of your trip if they ask for it and you don't have it, you know, so it's best to have that. So always having copies of them. Again, I have everything neatly packed in my backpack, so I've got all the stuff that I need for each border in a plastic satchel, and all my copies in another satchel. So inside this satchel I've got like 4 or 5 different satchels, so I can pull anything out at any stage. I have lots of copies of everything, but what I do is just in my backpack, in my little mini satchel, I only carry what I need for that border crossing. Again, get your mind right for your border crossings. All right, it's just really important that you don't get upset, don't get flustered, because if you know these people on the borders, they have a little power, and if they don't like you, they can wield it to the max. I've heard stories of people waiting at borders for 4 or 5 hours, and I'm sure they're just sitting in the room giggling because if you complain and say, "Oh, can't we hurry up?" They'll just say, "F you," and what they'll do is they'll just put your documents somewhere and just cater with other people. It happened to me a lot where a truck would arrive an hour after me, and then all of a sudden, and not because I was being rude or anything like that, they just decided that locals go first and gringos go last, and you can't say anything. If you say something, they can just go further than that. Most of the time they were pretty good. I didn't have that many problems. Now again with helpers, like when I was riding to the second border, they came chasing after me everywhere. I had a couple of guys on motorbikes riding next to me trying to talk to me while I was riding my bike between trucks, and I just stopped the bike and said, "Hey guys, get off, I don't need you." Okay, you'll see those people in the car there, you'll see that a lot too, people getting transported by car. I can only imagine what happens if they ever get into an accident, but you've just got to, with the people that approach you, if you need help, just be very clear. One of the things I write about on my blog is to make sure that you know exactly what the costs are for each border crossing. Now this border crossing, there's no cost. You've got to pay a small fee on the Guatemala side to get some copies done of something that's already a completed document. So once you get your import permit stamped out, they ask you to get some copies for that. It beggars belief. Why? Because they've just got papers everywhere, and I'm positive that, I don't know where all these papers go, but they would have a 10-foot high stack every day, and so I don't know what they do with them. Once they're entered in a computer system, I imagine they just get burnt or tossed out or whatever, but it's a ridiculous thing. And there's one thing that I'd like to do eventually, if I ever retire from work, is actually work on getting international permits. So people who, a process you have to go through that's tough, so you can actually get all these different countries involved that will allow it, and lobby all these governments of all these different countries to have an international import permit. So you basically register once, you go through a really tough process to verify ownership of the bike, and that you will not sell the bike and all this sort of stuff in any country, and basically you get issued with this permit, and then hopefully we can start getting all these different, make some software that can be an online database check, and make software that's internationally recognised. Probably cost a fair bit of money to get a permit, but would save everyone so much time crossing borders. It'd be a pretty big task, but it'd be fantastic. I mean, basically, if 20 border crossings at say an average of 4 hours of border crossing, that's 80 hours. That's a lot of time on border crossings that you really don't need to be in. You could probably halve that time with the proper process. So anyway, so that was just getting off track a little bit there. Yeah, so with helpers, if you need a helper, make sure you know exactly the cost of crossing the border. So this border was like 3 quetzals, or whatever they call it, the local currency in Guatemala. That's not even $1, and you'll get 3 copies, and that was it. That was the only cost on this border. Some borders have fees for coming in, and some borders have fees for exiting a country. But this one had none. So knowing that, all I have to do is, if anyone on the borders tries to skin you for money, you just say, "Hey, no, I know the exact cost. Here's the exact cost. I have it all." I use Google Keep for my note taking, so I have a copy on my a copy on Google servers as well as on my phone of everything I need, and I look at a couple of other blogs that people have written before I enter a country, Usually I've got to find do a search on Google and then narrow it down to something more recent, like something in 2016 for this trip. Was written in 2016, so I get a fair idea. So you know within a couple of dollars of what it's going to cost you to cross a border. Then you just make sure you always have small denominations of US dollars as well. So if you need to change at border, you can get some cash, because there's nothing worse than not having the money to pay, because then you've got to go and probably, for something like that, a lot of the borders, you've got to probably walk maybe a kilometre to go to a bank and get some local currency. So always be prepared beforehand. So preparation includes local currency, getting out of the country, okay, US dollars for getting in a country, because you can use US dollars most time. And if you've got US dollars, you can also change at the border. Like I would change maybe 20 US dollars worth at a border, and that would get me enough for the bite to eat if I needed to top up with fuel before I get there. It's a lot of the time you've got to pay cash for fuel, especially in remote areas. They won't accept credit card, and even if they do, they'll pretend that they don't. Okay. So, making sure you got all the copies of all the paperwork, have the local currency as you're exiting the country, enough local currency. If you've got spare extra, you can change it at the border. You just got to know what the rate is as well. So if you've got 50 US dollars, if you've got 50 quetzals or whatever, know what the exchange rate is on getting into El Salvador. You're not going to get the correct exchange rate, but you'll get something close. If you push them, you'll get something close. They might make 5%, and who cares if they do? Don't try to be an arsehole. They're trying to make money. They have a business, but they'll probably go for something pretty ridiculous first up, and then second up, they'll probably go a little bit easy on you if you push them for a better deal. And then if you're not happy and it's still pretty bad, just say walk away. There'll be somebody else there doing the same thing. Okay, so knowing that, another thing that you should have on borders is something to drink. All right, something cold to drink, because you're going to be waiting a few hours. And the final thing is get yourself in a good mood. Smile and be happy with everybody, even the people who are pushing you. Just go with it. Now, what I did on the El Salvador side, I was getting annoyed so much because I had to wait like 2 or 3 hours on that side. I just hired a local kid just to tell them that I'd already got someone to look after me. Not because he was looking after me and helping with if anything, he helped me with a couple of little things. But I just said, I'll give you $5 US if he could speak a little bit of English. $5 US if you tell everybody who tries to approach me that you're looking after me. Okay, and that got rid of everybody. Before that, I was getting people coming up to me every 5 minutes, So going over some of the tricks that these people will play. A couple of rules: never give them any of your original documents or anything like that. Never ever. It's just a complete no-no. So you don't give them your passport. You say no. I want to hold on to my passport. One of the guys I rode with, that I met along the way, Sam, got done for, between him and his mate, got done for about $300 or $400 US because the guys took away their passport and documents, their originals, and wouldn't give them back unless they gave them that money. So be smart, I mean that for people that can't afford it, it's just a complete rip-off, so always be careful. So here I am filling in gas. Always try to get the premium. Guys are pretty good about it. Try to get the best you can, and then tell them for full. Just most of them understand full, to fill it up. And if it was the average, the prices were about the same as the US. So it usually cost me about $20 a tank, and if I had $1 left over, I'd give them a tip. So just always remember to be smart on border crossings. If you can, stay close to the border. The day before, this is probably the furthest I stayed away from the border, which is only a couple of hours away. And here I am. I think this is the road that gets me to the border. Here, I'm pretty much in the middle of nowhere right now. I mean, there's only a couple of towns around this area. I was so excited at this point too, because I was making such good time. It was still, maybe about 9:30, 10 a.m. in the morning. Happy you know. I was a little bit quizzical because normally when you get close to border there's a lot of traffic. I was a bit, it was weirded out when I started approaching the last few kilometres or miles that I hadn't really seen too many cars. You know, normally you see a steady flow of cars and trucks coming out of a border, but I didn't think much of it. I thought, well, it's a quiet border, not a problem. The roads are a little bit rough, but you know, they were fine. Just got to keep your eye out for the potholes. As I mentioned in previous videos, they have crews that repair them. One crew comes through and cuts out the hole and cleans it up, and then the next one comes through and fills it in. So you end up with a lot of deep little potholes, and so you got to keep your eyes open for it. I remember I was riding behind one guy, and he was like weaving between all of them. I don't suggest you do that. Just keep your hands loose on the front forks and just lean back a little bit, and you'll just cruise over them. You know, you every now and then you get a really bad one you might have to avoid, but I think it's a bad practice to get in the habit of avoiding potholes, because you know, you could do it on a corner or something like that, and the car comes around, and the cars don't really stick to their sides in these countries as much as what you think they would. A lot of them think, oh well, there's no other cars on this road, so I'll just ride in the middle, you know. So yeah, the day started pretty badly for me with this border crossing coming up. Another thing you got to look out for is dogs. And it ended worse. So I'll tell you a little bit about that, because the video ends at the next border crossing. So what happened was once I ended up getting through the border, I think I'd already been on the road for about 5 or 6 hours by the time I got through the border. So 2.5 hours at the border, 3.5 hours to get there, when it was only going to be about an hour and a half to get there. 2 hours to get there. It ended up taking another hour and a half to go back again. However, so I got to, so after all this debacle, I ended up had a stop off along the way to San Salvador, the capital, where I booked a hotel, and I had a message from, I really shouldn't say it's a Sheraton, because I can't remember if it was a Sheraton or the Marriott there, and to say that they're sorry, but they could not fulfill my booking because they've overbooked, and they'll help me find another hotel. Blah 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 blah. So I thought, oh freaking hell, this can't be happening. So I did a quick look up online, and everything was booked in San Salvador, like everything that was just half decent. And after my day, I wanted somewhere, you know, nice to stay. But anyway, I decided, well, what can I do? And so I ended up just sitting in the Sheraton and looking for hotels. And there was one about 45 minutes away. It was already getting dark, about 45 minutes away in La Libertad, which is like a tourist resort. And I thought, well, I wasn't going to stay there. I was going to travel through there the next day and have a look at it. But I thought, well, I'll book something there. And I ended up arriving there. Yeah, like it was dark when I arrived there, and I walked into this hotel. Everything was pitch black. I'm thinking, what's going on here? And there's some candle lights at the bar area, and there's just a couple of chefs in there, and the owner and another guy at the bar. He didn't know. I ended up booking his online, and he didn't know anything about the booking, and told me that they don't have any electricity. I thought, you've got to be kidding me. Yeah, this cannot get any worse. And so he ended up finding he was a nice guy, and you know, he just didn't check his bookings, you know. And they couldn't, you know, because they didn't have any power, they couldn't let me in. It was a really nice place that they had too. So they ended up booking me in this little hostel with a swimming pool, and I should say hostel hole in the ground. And La Libertad is a bit of a dodgy little place, you know. There's a nice little strip along the way, but it's pretty dodgy. So I ended up staying there the night, and there was a bar about 50 metres away, so I just went there afterwards, after this 10.5 hours of riding, just having a beer, you know. Just having a couple of beers and just relaxing. I had about 4 or 5 beers in about 10 minutes. So here I am coming to the first border, And as you can see, everyone's ready, waving me to the side, and this happens a lot. People running out. So everyone tries to get to you straight away to either change your money or to help you to get in. And I'm very quickly realising that something's not right here, because there was no cars on the other side and everything seemed dead. And so all these guys are trying to change money with me, and I just said, look, hang on, I just want to get my stuff sorted first. He's trying to offer me rates. They were all right guys, you know. And everyone's like, I'll look after your bike while you go. They'll always say that because they just want a few dollars. Oh, no, I'll keep my eye on your bike, you know. So I ended up starting to go, okay, what's going on? And this guy is just like, no, all closed, man. And then I'll walk in and I chat with the person and say, no through. So nothing was going through this place. That guy ends up opening the window and telling me that, so you can see my red satchel I pulled out of my bag there, getting everything ready. This guy's now telling me that it's closed and I have to go to the other border. You can see the stacks of paperwork the guy got going. So I ended up turning around and I walked out of there a few minutes later. The guy told me to turn my camera off too. So I ended up getting a little bit of change from this guy and getting rid of a lot of my local currency. So then I didn't have to worry about that at the next border. He tried to offer me that. At this stage I basically just accepted it. Everyone's trying to help me. I ended up just negotiating. You just negotiate. He'll give you one price and then you'll ask him to do it again and get the other price. He makes a few dollars, he's cool. So they're now telling me where I've got to go now, what the border crossing is. One of the guys was trying to tell me I should go through this dirt road that goes basically across, and I said, okay, I wasn't going to do that. Not on this. Not after this, thinking, oh well, if I get stuck, and you know, really, I think I had about 3/4 of a tank left. Just worked out my crap, and then got moving again. You know, this is what you have to deal with, and you have to put up with, and you know, it's a little bit of a process, and I didn't expect to have to do this, but this is the only border crossing I had that actually was closed on the whole trip. And look, the thing about border crossings is if you get there in the right frame of mind, so he's trying to tell me I should cut off that highway and cross across this little dirt road. And the dirt road on the Google Maps, he told me it goes all the way through, but it didn't show it on the Google Maps, and I thought, you know, this is not a good day and I don't want to make it worse. So, getting on the bike. It's a pity the sound wasn't working, because you could hear my grunts every time I had to get my leg over with my gear. Yeah, getting on and off the bike, I got some reinforced pegs and some really strong pegs, and basically I actually put my left foot on the peg and then lift my right leg over. Other guys put their leg through, but I'm not. I've played football most of my adult life, and my knees are completely shot, and not easy for me to do that. My knees get swelled up very easy. So I put my leg right over. Basically, my leg goes right over the top of the back case, or just flicks it basically. Yeah. So yep, back on the road again, and basically I ended up going back the same way. First, I had to go back the same way. You'll see it on my website. You'll see the map of where I went back. So I ended up having to go back and then back around to the right again, and then so I back into Guatemala, back on the same road, and then turn right and get back, go further north. and that's where I ended up. So basically, and the big problem with what I was doing now was I was going to arrive there around about 11:30 a.m. midday, which is the worst time in any of the Central American, South American countries to get to a border, because they have the lunch breaks and they're usually always short-staffed, and not the best situation. So I just basically I didn't gun it or anything like that. I just thought, well, I've just got to deal with it. I still don't know that at this stage. I still don't know that my hotel in Salvador has done the dirty on me. Then I didn't realise, and I still don't know that the next hotel I booked was also out of electricity, and so ended up staying in it was like $10, $15 for a night with a private room in like a hostel. It had this swimming pool with a hole in the ground. The water was pretty boiling heat, so it wasn't that refreshing. I had a swim in the morning before I left. But they were nice guys, and there's a lot of people like walking up and down the streets looking for places to stay in La Libertad as well. But it was a nice little touristy type town, La Libertad, but pretty dodgy all the way around. I wouldn't recommend it as a place to have a holiday, because El Salvador, and I'll talk about this in the next video, it's just a sensational place. Even though I had this really bad experience the first day, the next place I stay in is phenomenal. Just beautiful beaches. I had like a 5-star hotel, $50 a night, all to myself. I was the only guest. I only had like 10 rooms or 10 guest houses, right on a cliff overlooking the ocean. Spectacular. Good Wi-Fi, not amazing Wi-Fi, but good Wi-Fi, and really good people at the hotel. Air conditioned, beautiful bed, just in a balcony, a real big balcony with table and chairs, and a spa, and a cold pool. Oh, I could have stayed there forever. Unfortunately, they were actually booked out. I stayed there for 2 nights, and they were booked out for 3. On the 3rd night, I was going to stay there an extra night, and it was actually in El Salvador that I got notice from the boat as well. That because I was on reserve on the Stahlrapp, the German boat that goes from Panama to Cartagena in Colombia, and my previous booking on another boat, their trip was cancelled. So basically, at the last minute, I had to find another boat, and it was looking really bad. But then they ended up, the Stahlrapp crew ended up having an extra boat ride just for motorbikers trying to get across, because obviously other people had the same issue. And so they had a special voyage, and I was reserved. And then I found out in the next couple of days, I found out, hey, I'm on. But the thing was, my original boat was going to go over early December, and the Stahlrapp, the boat I ended up getting on, was 8 days earlier. So basically, from El Salvador, I had to hot foot it through Nicaragua. Basically, I think I'm around about the 10th or the 11th here of November. I had basically 11 days to get to Panama. So it sort of ruined a bit of it, because I wanted to spend an extra few days in El Salvador, Honduras and Nicaragua, but basically, Costa Rica, but basically had no choice. So this is coming to the other border, and as you can see, it's just trucks after truck. Whenever you see this at a border, just keep riding up. Some official people might try to stop you, but you just keep going. There's not, normally it's not really a problem. So again, coming up to the border here, you'll see, I think this border had the building in the middle, on the exit, the blue building. So I'm still looking here, and with all the motorbikes, I'll let you park up right next to the building. I think I'm still contemplating whether I should jump around, but usually someone comes out to you and tells you to go around. But with the cars, they've got to park in certain areas, but with the motorbikes, I let them park right out the front. Oh no, there's a gate here, that's why I'm waiting. Should have edited this part out. But normally, nearly every single border crossing you'll go to, there'll be somebody who's going to wave you through. And so he's told me to go around, and then I think I get to the border here. So people will come up to you, park your car. There's a building. There's stuff you got to do here there on the left, and then on the right. So the right side is to get your to get stamped out. And I write about it here, but they're pretty finicky about cameras. I've seen a few other bikers do the cameras all the way through, but normally as soon as you get somewhere, they check it and they'll ask you to turn it off, and you just basically don't want to get into any trouble. So what I take with me normally is I'll always take my tank bag and my backpack. I tell this guy to wait 5 minutes and I'll come back and see him. So I'll take my my tank bag. Look, when you say no to people that you don't need help, they'll probably end up following you anyway. Someone will end up following you, so this guy's an official. So I'm just asking for immigration and aduana. Immigration is one side, aduana is the other side. So the first thing you got to do is go to immigration, and then you do your aduana. You'll get people trying to annoy you, but most of the people just want to help. You know, they want to earn a few dollars. You'll know when you're trying to get scalped or skinned by them. They'll be really pushing you to work with them. You know. And if you really want to help, you've got to know your costs, as I said earlier, up front, and not only know your costs, but also know any of the other fees. Any other fees that you'll know the exact cost, and then tell them exactly what you're going to pay them. And be clear, because most of them only get through one side of the border. They might say, I'll get you through both. To say, no, I'll pay you $5 for each border, or something like that. Actually, I think he lets me park it right up the front. I couldn't back it out. So everyone will try to do some business with you. I found that most people were trying to, you know, they wanted to help. This guy here was trying to get some money out of me. I think I gave him $5 and he was alright. This guy's trying to tell me that he's official. I take no notice of that stuff. I just want to know whether he speaks English, because they can fake it, all these people. So that's on the other side. That was getting into El Salvador on that side, and you can see the aduana sign. So I had to wait there for forever, like 2 hours or something on that side. But that's life. Anyway, questions and comments below, guys. Thank you.